Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. It's the day before Thanksgiving. My name is Hicks-Forrest. My website is Hello Extraordinary Life. Check that page out, the landing page. You get your free ebook, 3 Steps to Reprogramming Your Negative Self-Talk. All of these calls are recorded, so you can also check out under Insider Calls on the website, Hello Extraordinary Life. Under Insider Calls, all of the recordings are there. There are now over 70. So I'm super excited to just say the number because I've been consistent for over a year, going on 2. So there's lots of recordings, and every single topic is all leading back to loving ourselves from the inside, because that's the only way that I have learned and found to truly find happiness. Not even find it, to develop it, because it's an inside job. Someone told me one time that, my happiness is my responsibility, because I was looking at everyone else to make me happy and to make me feel okay. And my happiness is my responsibility. And I was in a really miserable marriage at that point, and attempting to figure out how to make myself happy from the inside while I was in this miserable situation. It didn't work very well. We got divorced. I realized that I wasn't going to change him, and by changing me, I wasn't willing to live in that kind of situation. So I'm sure many can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And I figured today is the day before Thanksgiving, so let's talk about the benefits of gratitude. That's typically where we remember and get reminded to be grateful. November is a month of gratitude. I stopped this month and went, where's the rest of my life then? If I'm only present to it now. There's actually physiological things that happen in our body when we are grateful and when we maintain that place of gratitude. And I wanted to start with what happens. I'm going to shift to the gratitude, but what happens in our brain when we have negative thinking, guilt, stress, low self-esteem, I'm not good enough, all those kind of things. And I was reading about this. I went and looked up some different things because I wanted to have some actual concrete facts. And there are things that happen on either side. When we get into our negative thinking, science proves that it's easier to get into the negative. It's harder to get into the positive. I have no idea why that is so. But our amygdala actually stores, part of the brain, it actually stores the negative life experiences. And it is responsible for our fight or flight responses. So it's storing this information, and then we get caught up in that reaction, and we're in that negative place. Programming, whatever it is, PTSD, ADHD, ADD, there's all kinds of things that can play into this. Sometimes it's just simply our programming. Then we overreact. If we look at our life and something happens in our life and we're having this reaction that's over the top, let's just say, to this circumstance. And if we don't stop to consider that, we simply are reacting. Then somewhere possibly something triggers us to really look and come to the conclusion that my response, my reaction to this circumstance is way more than is necessary for the circumstance. And that's due to our programming, that's due to other stressors, the PTSD, if you've had any kind of trauma, it's that reaction, and it sends that fight or flight. So even if it's something, traffic jam, suddenly stopping, it can trigger your fight or flight response, which is over the top maybe to the circumstance at hand because you have a previous trauma. It's part of the function. So I'm looking at this. saying negative thoughts affect our brain by triggering the same stress response. Chronic stress affects the body physically and can have negative effects on our health and well-being. It triggers our cortisol. Cortisol is that stress hormone. That's the word I want. Over time, it changes our brain. That affects how we operate in the world, creates mental disorders. I suspect even I've seen my own family, a few people. My grandma died she had dementia. And I have an aunt who has dementia on opposite sides of my family. One's my mom's, one's my dad's. Both very, very, very negative people. Very negative people. That's their state of mind. They lived in that negative place. So the mental disorder caused from that, staying in that negative place. It's quite fascinating. Learning to retrain the brain. It's an interesting proposition. It takes something. As you know, we get triggered simply by someone earlier was talking about not doing Thanksgiving and then feeling guilty. Right? Programming, stress response, stress reaction, whatever that is that we do to ourselves. It's automatic. There's no thought about it. Right? It's just automatic in our brain, and if we aren't mindful about it and paying attention and constantly replacing those thoughts with some positive things, we're just off and running. And then it gets this big snowball effect because we just let it run amok. With that, what I've learned is if I can tell someone and say it out loud, I stop giving it power in my brain. Now, this is different than continuing to talk about it and complain about it, right? So sometimes we get in that, let me just talk over and over and over and overkill it by complaining about it. I'm talking about speaking it out loud so that we stop giving it power in our minds. Maybe we come to the solution in that. Okay, so that's just that, it's, we get into those places. The chemicals get released when we're in that state of negativity. If we're not mindful about it, we're off and running. That's just how it goes. There's nothing wrong. It's just how our brains operate. When we start becoming mindful and start looking at new ways to do things, then we begin to shift. And what I'm learning as I do this more and more and I study more and more about our brain, it's a function. There are functions in our brain, depending on how it was developed in the womb even, and when we were born as babies, whether we were safe, whether it developed the way that it was designed to, there's three levels of the reptilian brain, which is our survival, the limbic brain, which is our emotional system, whole body emotional system, and then the neocortex, which is logic and reasoning. When we don't feel safe, because we're all about feeling as babies and in the womb, it's all sensory. We have no coping skills or mind function yet. So the more I've learned about the brain, it's simply a function of how we were brought in. It's not a wrong thing. Not a right thing. It's just how it is. And that helps me to stop beating the shit out of myself for how I am. So I hope somebody finds that helpful, because just having a little bit of the factual knowledge of some of the stuff's a function of our brain and how we were born. We were born to survive. And that's what we've learned to do till now. Now we're learning to do something else. We still survive, but we live into some more thriving. Okay, let me shift over to how can we begin? How do we begin? How do we continue? Maybe we've already begun. And I wanted to talk about the benefits of gratitude, because that is just one way. And It's amazing how the physiology, the same as our negative stress produces chemicals and hormone release in our body, so does gratitude. So does gratitude. And staying in that state of gratitude, it can be as simple as saying thank you to someone. Let's say someone opens the door for you, telling them thank you. Thank you for opening the door for me. Thank you for honoring me in that way. It's simple, right? But it's that constant state, acknowledging people for how they are in our life. Saying thank you. I say thank you to my husband for cooking dinner. He opens my car door every day. Every time we go somewhere, I wait in the car for him to come and open the door for me. That's just what he does. He taught me that. So when I don't, he's like, hey. And I say thank you. Those simple things of saying thank you to someone helps them and helps me maintain that state. I have been recommending to others to write a gratitude journal. Well, guess what? I had stopped doing it quite some time ago. I have books of gratitude journals, and then I stopped. Got too busy. I got too whatever. It takes a minute to write one thing of gratitude. And what I'll say is when you write, if you decide to do this, keeping a journal, I write now, today, I started doing it again, 3 to 5 is the minimum. Usually once I get going, I'm on a roll, and then I can just write a few. But at the very least, I do 3. It takes, 10 minutes. It's not very long to add into my morning routine. Not only do I write what I'm grateful for, I write why. The why part was the hook for me. The why part says, I'm not just grateful that I'm upright and vertical and breathing. I'm grateful because in addition to that piece, the why part is I get to be here on this call today. I get to share with others the benefits of gratitude. I get to live my purpose. So writing the why part takes us from our head, because I can talk about gratitude all day long. I can talk about all the things in my life I am grateful for. When I start speaking about the why, writing the why, it drops me into my heart. So a little shift that starts to happen. So some things. Then when I get caught up, here's another thing I do when I get caught up in, I wake up in the morning, early in the morning, I wake up and my head is off and running. And if I pick up some thought, maybe my husband said something yesterday, and he's living in a space of a lot of fear right now. And I'll pick up something that he said because it can resonate with some kind of fear I have. And I'm off and running in the morning, early in the morning when I first wake up. My brain's just spinning. Today, in the last recent while, I'm learning to disrupt a thought. So here's the disruption, is looking for every single thing in my world that is good. Every single thing in my life that I have, that I am grateful for. I have a home. I have a bed to sleep in. I have a fabulous dog who loves to hang out with me when I'm working. I have a water to take a shower. I'm breathing. Some of them are really, really simple, but it disrupts the pattern of my fear, because if it's not a loving thought and a grateful thought, it's a fear thought. Everything falls under that fear category. When I start looking at all that I have, it takes me out of that fear category and shifts my energy and my vibration to be in a more loving, kind, compassionate, grateful state. So those are some of the things to do. But the biology, the benefits of gratitude is shifting. It shifts our chemical makeup in our body. It's so the hypothalamus it regulates a lot of our bodily functions, and when we are in a state of gratitude, it activates the hypothalamus. which kicks off some dopamine. So it starts the dopamine is that feel-good hormone, right? It makes us feel good. So it can become, when we get into a lot of gratitude, it can also become addictive because it feels good. It makes us feel good. And it floods our brain with that chemical called dopamine. So our brains now, instead of being in that negative place that I was talking about earlier, our brain rewards us and gives us that natural high. Then we can be motivated. This is how we start to make that shift, right? It feels good to do those things, those small, simple acts of kindness. Giving somebody that's homeless, giving them some food. Tomorrow we're going to serve the evacuees from the fire. So those are really good, feel good. They fill me up feelings. And then I want to do more of that. No motive, simply because it's a good thing to do and I like doing those things. So that kicks off my feel-good chemical in my body, and then I want to do more of that. When those things are kicked off, we get better sleep, we have decreased pain levels, sometimes because we're not focused on the pain. We're simply focused on the things that we're grateful for. It stops that worry cycle when we can focus on what I was talking about earlier, where when I wake up in that fear place and I shift over to all the things I have in my world. I can do that when I'm going to sleep too. My brain's off and running and I can't go to sleep. I just start thinking of all the things that I have in my world. And I have a lot. We all have a lot. And when we stop the cycle, that's where we begin those new pathways, those new neural pathways in our brain. So we start shifting out of the ruts of that negative stuff by disrupting it. And that's the process, and it takes practice. I think everything I've ever talked about on any of these calls, I will say it over and over, it all takes practice. Because it's not, our natural state has been whatever it's been until now. And now we're doing something different. And then we get uncomfortable when we start feeling really good. So then I'm going to sabotage myself and go back to what I'm familiar and comfortable with. I know everybody can relate to that in some way. And it's okay. Then we start over. Right? We look at it and go, oh, dang it, I did that again. Okay, well, let's just get curious. Okay, why did I do that again? Because I wasn't really comfortable being over here on the good side of my life. I'm used to the crap. I'm used to the drama, or I'm used to the chaos. I'm used to the emotional turmoil. It's familiar. Whether I like it or not is immaterial. It's familiar, and in that way it's comfortable. And when I begin to shift and become happier, more fulfilled on the inside, that's truly uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. So sometimes that's just that cycle. We go back and revisit. Oh, wait, I didn't want to be there anymore. So we're going to go back to feeling good. We're going to keep raising that. I call it a set point. If we have our thermostat set at 78, we're raising it. We're going to keep raising it so that we can get up into those higher levels of love, and we vibrate at that higher level. And then you start noticing that we start attracting more really beautiful things. Okay, stress reduces anxiety and depression. There's actually some percentages that they show in here. I'm not going to talk about that, but I wanted to talk about the things that there's actually scientific studies that show when we are in a state of gratitude, it increases our dopamine, which is that feel-good hormone. And some of the ways to do that are things I've talked about, which is keeping a journal. And if you don't like writing, fine. You don't have to. It's a way. It's a visceral way to activate our brain to think in that direction. Then when I do that in the morning, it sets the tone for my day. When I don't do that in the morning, I notice a difference. When I do it long enough, missing a day is not going to take me out. But it does make an effect. When we have the habit long enough, missing a day is it's not as detrimental as when we begin. Because when I'm beginning, and I did it for a long time, and I'm not sure why I stopped. I can't even tell you why I stopped. Life got too busy, probably. Some bullshit excuse I made up, which is what we do. And then I start recommending it to people to do because I know it works. Well, then I better start doing it too because I know it works, right? If I'm going to recommend it, I'm going to live it too. That's just how it works for me. Is there anything else? I think that was everything that I was looking up around that for our actual scientific proof of the benefits. It's just that, you know, we say coffee or caffeine is food for the brain. Well, that's what gratitude is. Food for our brain. Creating that feel-good emotion, the feel-good dopamine chemical release. Yeah, the more we do it, the better we feel on every level. Okay, I am going to stop there because I think I could keep talking on and on about it because it's just such an incredible thing. Any good stuff you got from that? Any takeaways, aha moment?
Yes. I just realized I have to start the journaling regarding the gratitude. I haven't done it for a while. It's time to do it.
Yay. Good.
And you're absolutely right about when you have gratitude on your mind, it changes your whole perspective on everything and everybody you encounter during the day. If you start off in a negative mode, I find myself that people piss me off. You know,
yes,
for the minutest things. And then I also realized that I do not like to be around real negative people because it just drains me.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, physically, it just drains me. I cannot be around them very long. Not at all.
I understand. Yes.
And today I have a lot of things to be grateful for. I just need to acknowledge them to myself by putting it on paper.
Awesome. Anything for you, Lori? Thanks, Laura Donna.
Yeah. Yes, I like the fact that knowing that we all kind of can be gravitating towards the negative. You know, I'm not the only one. But I love that we have just the simplest choice of the redirect to, you know, the more, like you said, toward gratitude. If you're kind of going down the rabbit hole, you could just go, okay, let's redirect over here. So it's not so difficult. It's really kind of a choice in the moment. So I like that. So I will be starting my journal as well. And we do have a lot to be grateful for. We really do. You look at what's going on out, you know, in our area with the fires, and just the simplicities of life are gone for them. So definitely grateful for everything we have.
Absolutely. I met a couple last night that were from Paradise, and I'm pretty bold about asking the question, so I asked if they lost their home because they hadn't mentioned anything, and they said their home, they had a little cluster where they lived, that their home and a few around them survived. They're not there, obviously, but their home survived, and I don't know what that means yet for their future, but they have a home, and I still think about all the people that don't, and so our little town here is totally stepping up. I think there's many places that are.
Yes.
Yeah, there's many places. It was on the news that we're going to serve the evacuees at McBean Park tomorrow from 2 to 6, so you can show up there. Also, somebody began a Christmas, what'd she call it? We just saw the post. It's a Christmas tree. She's got different locations for Christmas trees for the evacuees. So people can I think they're going to take names, get names for the people and what they need. So people can purchase a Christmas for them.
Wow.
So that's many. Yeah, I think at some point we come more into the giving than the feeling like we have to receive.
Yeah.
So, and then when I see things like that, it just puts my life in perspective.
Yeah.
Marty, where do you find all these posts of what's going on in and around Lincoln? I'm new to the area. I don't get the paper, the Lincoln paper. Is there a place on the web?
You can go into, if you're on Facebook, you can go on to events in Lincoln.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's many places that, like Good Neighbors of Lincoln, there's some of those local groups, and they'll have them in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would just go on the web and type it in there. You may find it in there, and it may take you to Facebook, but there's lots of stuff happening.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Have an amazing holiday, whatever you choose. Remember to stay in that state. Disrupt your patterns, right? Just disrupt the pattern when you start heading down that rabbit hole. Before you get too far down, just stop. Just stop the thought. And that just requires us being mindful. Sometimes it's taking a deep breath and pausing.
True.
It just takes us remembering. So thank you so much for being here.
Ladies.
Thank
Alrighty,
you.
You too. Thank you. Happy
All right.
holiday.
Talk
Bye-bye.
to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.